when the husband died and the wife came in, and I showed her the bucket plan up on the board and put all her accounts in to remind her, because he primarily drove the bus. She was in the meetings, and she just looked down for like what felt like an eternity. And she looked up and tears were streaming down her eyes. And she got up and walked around the table and gave me this bear hug like I never felt before, and was like, I'm going to be okay, aren't I?
This is Stay Paid, the marketing podcast that gives listeners a competitive edge to stay motivated, find inspiration, and discover proven real-world tactics from some of the best marketers across the nation.
Welcome to Stay Paid. My name is Joshua Stike, along with Luke Acree, and our guests today are Jason Smith and Dave Alison. Jason is a speaker, financial planner, and best-selling author of The Bucket Plan, a must-read book for anyone serious about creating practical and sensible financial plan for your retirement years. Dave is a thought leader, speaker, and industry trainer with extensive expertise in financial and tax planning. Both guests have racked up numerous personal and professional accreditation, including Investment News 40 Under 40. Jason, Dave, welcome to Stay Paid. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us.
It is an honor to have you guys on the show. Looking forward to this. I know you guys are going to drop a lot of wisdom and gold. I'd love to dive right in for the sake of time and just ask you, and maybe I'll throw this to you, Jason, is like the bucket plan. Where did it come from? What led you to write the book?
Yeah. Bucketing in general, as most people know, has been around the industry for a long time. The first sightings of it was Harold Levinsky back in the 80s, a professor at Texas Tech that was also a financial planner, who was using this kind of time segmenting money based on the purpose and the time horizon of when you'll want or need to access those funds. And so I knew nothing about that, right? In the 80s, I was running around in the backyard playing in the woods in diapers or whatever. And so but the thing is I actually used to use boxes. And the funny thing was I had a dry erase board in my office, and I used to draw 3 boxes. And I used to talk to people about kind of like what you would want for these accounts, right? Your now accounts. And I put a now above the box. And then these are your soon accounts that you might need to access for soon for income or withdrawals. And I'd write soon above that box, and then I'd write later above the third box. I'd be like, this is your long-term money. You may not need to access it for a long time, maybe money in the stock market, or you might leave that money on to beneficiaries. And I would literally have that. I'd write on sticky notes each account that they had. And I'd say, which box does this belong to? And then I would put those up on the board. And then one day I was doing this with a couple, and I totaled up what was in each box, the sticky notes in each, the now, the soon, and the later. And I wrote them above each one of the boxes. And then I circled each one of those totals. And the guy says to me, he's like, those look like buckets. He's like, I've always had a bucket list, but I've never had a bucket plan. And I'm like, ding, 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 right? Like, this is amazing. So I tell my wife, I go home, I tell her the story. She literally starts going about getting it trademarked.
Wow.
The bucket plan in these 3 buckets.
You have a smart wife. You have a smart wife.
No kidding. And then I ended up finding out later on, it's been around forever. A lot of people have been doing it. By no means do I take ownership of inventing it, but that's actually how the bucket plan started. And then over the years, like just layered in a financial planning process around that. And, then wrote a book on it, and, just that's where we are today.
So talk about the process, because I know this is something that you use to walk clients through a process. And I know you guys have a kind of these steps that you go through. Share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'd love Dave to do that. Dave is our wizard these days. I've kind of passed the baton. He's our lead trainer of the bucket plan online and virtual trainings, and he's really taking it to a whole nother level. So go ahead, Dave.
Sure. I remember it was probably, Jason, 15, 16 years ago, you were a student of Strategic Coach and Dan Sullivan's entrepreneurial coaching company. And, they're so focused on packaging your wisdom and building it into a unique process. And so, I remember the first time I started to hear Jason talk about his process for financial planning, which was the bucket plan, essentially. I was familiar with the concept of bucketing and time segmenting money, like learned it in college, studying finance, but never had a proven track, a sales process to actually run on with clients. And, financial planning process, it's a sales process, right? We have to sell the client that they should hire us as their financial advisor and implement a plan. And so, one of the things that's always challenging as a financial advisor is we're typically selling something intangible, right? We're selling advice, we're selling portfolios. It's not like you can pick it up out of our office and take it home. And so how do you really kind of transform what we're selling into something that the client can actually experience and understand what they're going to go through? And that's where, Jason said, kind of taking the philosophy of bucketing or time segmenting money, but then building a process around that. We kind of boiled it down to 4 steps that we take a client through. And those 4 steps give us the ability to articulate what this kind of onboarding process is going to look like for the client. They're kind of our 4 Ds: discover, design, deliver, and then dedicate. And so within our sales process, the first thing that we need to do is really understand the client, understand their goals and objectives and their current finances. That's step 1, discover. Typically an hour to an hour and a half meeting that we go through with the client. From there, we do all of our nerdy financial advisor stuff. We crunch the numbers, we analyze the data, we look at risk, we pick investments, like we structure and begin to design the client's plan, right? How do we help them go from where they are today to where they want to go in the most efficient manner? What strategies, portfolios, products, and vehicles do we have to do that? Well, once we, come out of our nerd lab of crunching all of these numbers, we need to then deliver that to the client. That's step 3, the delivery phase. And we need to do it in a way that the client can actually understand. How do we simplify all of this complexity of portfolio analysis and tax strategies and insurance and income distribution, and actually delivered in a way that the client says, hey, this actually makes sense and I want to move forward and I want to hire you as my advisor to continue to guide us along the journey. And assuming we do a good job there, step 4 is dedicate. That's where we're dedicating our firm's resources to helping the client continue to navigate everything that could come up in their financial life. Whether it's ongoing financial planning, whether it's asset management, tax management, protection planning, or estate planning. And so kind of what we...
Right along what you're talking about right now, I'd love you to share, for everybody to visualize, right? These 4 steps are on the front of a laminated document that we'll kind of show to the client or bring it up on the screen. Discover, design, deliver, dedicate. And it kind of bullet points what's going to happen under each one. On the flip side of that, or on the second slide, would show the backside, which is the 5 tenets of financial planning. I think it's such a great way to explain what we do. So Dave, if you want to kind of share that.
Yeah. So again, I think in sales in general, part of the opportunity that we all have to increase the conversion of clients ending up hiring us is to eliminate kind of confusion along the way, to give the client an exact kind of roadmap of where we're going, what we're going to be delivering, what they get out of it. And so to Jason's point, building that visualization of discover, design, deliver, and dedicate on the front. And, if you're kind of visualizing those 4 steps or those 4 Ds, kind of some bullet points under of what we're going to do in each of those meetings and what the outcome is going to be. And then flip it over to the back side, right? What most people are looking for when they're interviewing an advisor like us is somebody who can provide kind of a holistic approach to all those areas: financial planning, asset management, tax management, protection planning, and estate planning. And so that back visual is this is what we do. This is our unique, bringing all these different areas together so that they're well coordinated on your behalf, and just really helps kind of connect the dots for the consumer every step of the way throughout the process.
Is it the visualization of do you find that it's even less about telling people you're going through this discover, design, and all, delivery, dedicate type stuff, as much as is showing them visually so they can like see it. Is that like the big breakthrough like for the consumer, or do you find like it is literally mapping out like working with them through each process, I guess?
I mean, I think anytime going back to what Dave was sharing, when we're trying to take something, and make it visual, right? And that's what's so hard about our business and what we're trying to do for people. So we've created, in addition to the 3 buckets of now, soon, and later, and for them to be able to see safe and liquid inside of the now bucket, conservative and income inside the soon bucket, and long-term growth and legacy planning inside of the later bucket. And there's even like kind of, what these things do, or the components checklist underneath of these 3 buckets. We also have, we've created, even talking about tax planning strategies, we have the funnels, right, of like describing the 3 ways that money's taxed and how those funnels fill the buckets. So anytime we can simplify, right, and create visuals to explain concepts. We have a measuring cup that we use to explain taxation of the money. And so it's all these things that, and I think, a lot of people have heard this before, but, a confused mind can't make decisions. And when we're talking to them about financial, tax, legal, insurance, comprehensive, holistic wealth management, which is what we do. It's a very overwhelming and very confusing topic for a lot of people. So as advisors, in my opinion, our number one job is to simplify. We have to always keep focused on how do we simplify things into stories, into analogies, into visuals, into the pyramid of risk is another one. And so everything we do, we're always trying to create these visuals that there's some familiarity. People know what a measuring cup, they know what funnels are, they know what buckets are, they know what a pyramid is. So all these different concepts that we utilize and create these visuals are all focused on simplifying, even the 4 steps with the 5 tenets of planning. Like we just always want to create whatever we can to simplify it for the client, for the advisor.
Yeah, that's so good. Do you do it? This is more of a technical question. Do you do it with software, or do you do it like literal paper when you're in front of them? Like what works better for the advisor from a converting standpoint when they're doing the meeting?
Honestly, we typically see what works best is when you're interactively kind of sketching this out on a dry erase board, or if you're doing a virtual meeting, that's what I do with most of my clients. I'm sketching this out on a tablet, kind of whiteboarding it, building it with them, very much like, building a house. The architect is going to work with you to design it together. When we get from, and that's a big part of the design phase of what we do, step 2. When we get to deliver, that's where we're sitting down and kind of putting a really pretty package plan deliverable, kind of taking the stuff that we sketched out together and bringing it to life and memorializing it in a nice kind of deliverable that the client's going to have and be able to take home.
And even more specifically, to answer your question, Luke, do we do financial modeling, tax modeling, investment analysis, and have those reports? We do. We have that locked and loaded in our spiral bound plan deliverable if we're in person or bringing it up on the screen. So all that work has been done. But some people don't want you to pop the hood and see what the engine looks like. Yeah. They want to get in the car and just know it's going to start and hit the gas and steer the wheel. And so we have it, but I tell you what, I would say at least 2/3 of the people, even high net worth people that we work with, they don't need to see it, right? They don't want to see it. Maybe when they get home, they look at it. Maybe they don't. But they just want to understand how we've simplified it. And that's why we're always packaging it into the pyramids and the buckets and the funnels and the measuring cups.
Jason's heard this story, but it was probably about 2 months ago. I was delivering a bucket plan for a $30 million client, leaving a big wirehouse. So ultra high net worth guy by, the definition out there. And it was interesting, like so much complexity to his plan, estate planning, all this different trust work, a lot of different investment work. He had a couple hedge funds. And we had everything packaged in his 3 simple buckets. Now bucket is his liquidity, soon bucket is his cash flow, later bucket is his long-term growth and legacy. And after a 2-hour meeting with him, and his trustee was in there as well, who was a CPA, he sat back and said, my biggest takeaway from this meeting is I've never seen all my assets on one page compartmentalized like you have it here with my now, soon, and later bucket. Like, so much complexity went into this plan, but his biggest takeaway, $30 million client, 72 years of age, been around the block, he worked on Wall Street for a long time, was he never saw kind of his assets on one page in these 3 simple buckets based on purpose, time horizon, and his goals.
That is so true too, because I think of my biggest frustration all the time I've gone through this like trust plans and stuff like that is been like, it is so freaking complicated and you don't have the time to lay it all out. And so you get frustrated because you don't know what you have, what you don't have. It kind of gets spread out. So simplifying it. And I love I want the audience to make sure they didn't miss it, because I think this applies to whether you're in real estate, mortgage, financial advising, across the board. Doing the sketching out when you're in the room with them, I think is so powerful because it literally shows your authority on the subject matter and your ability, like you said, to take complex concepts and break them down into real clarity and real ease of understanding. And you're visually showing them your ability to do that right there. And they're a part of it at the same time, which is just massive.
100%. And I want to piggyback off of that because it's so important. So these things that we talk about, the 3 buckets, for example, the now, soon, and later, we have a version that has like the words in it. And that's what we do to explain the philosophy in general, right? Like if you look up the bucket plan on YouTube, there's a whiteboard video, a couple minutes long, explains it real well. You'll see all the visuals. And so, but when we go to actually working with the client, we have all the words removed. All it says is now, soon, and later, and the buckets are empty. And we're sketching it out and we're talking it through it with the client. Same thing on the pyramid of risk. When we go and we actually put their assets in the high and the medium and the low risk category, and we're writing in, their dollar amounts and talking to them about it. So we have like the structure of the pyramid there. We have the structure of the buckets. But we have the structure of the funnels. But the importance, you just nailed it, is we have to write in a lot of the words and the balances and everything else because it makes us the authority. And actually, if I'm in person with someone, I love being up on a dry erase board or a smart board or a Pana board because I'm standing and it's almost like the teacher and the student. There's a psychology to that.
That's so good, man. Yeah, I love that.
Well, and I just wanted to kind of piggyback one thing. Again, I think this transcends any industry, certainly not specific to financial advisors, but as you're looking to scale your sales team, in our case, more financial advisors, right? What Jason mentioned earlier of giving them the tools makes the process repeatable, trainable, delegatable, right? So like me as a financial advisor, I've got a ceiling of capacity, right? I'm in a service industry. There's only so many clients I can serve. And so to grow my business, I got to hire another financial advisor. Well, to be able to plug them into a 4-step process, discover, design, deliver, dedicate, to give them the tools like Jason mentioned. So now all they need to do is stand in front of the whiteboard and help kind of walk the client through sketching these out. It starts to multiply and scale your sales department, your business development efforts. I mean, everything starts to come together in a more efficient manner.
No, that's awesome. Do you use this as like as a lead generation also? Like, are you kind of promoting the bucket plan as a way to get prospects' attentions and get them to raise their hand? Or does it all come into, there you go, we're holding up the book. Dave's holding up the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and that's been like one of the biggest benefits of it all, right? Having a unique process that sounds different than every other financial advisor, and being able to build out a lot of marketing collateral. So we have, we do a lot of virtual workshops. We do a lot of in-person workshops. All of it kind of layers back into the proven process that we take all of our clients through, which is the bucket plan. We have all kinds of content. I mean, I could go to pretty much any one of these chapters in this book, and that could be its own segment of specialized content to be able to push out there and use for lead generation back in.
The bucket plan book is a fantastic lead magnet in that regard, right, to capture. And then we do a lot of, online seminars, a lot of online education around different topics, estate planning, Social Security, taxes, different areas. But, and when they attend that book, it's like, if they attend that webinar, one of the things we'll do is like they get the book, right? And then we mail out the book to them. And then we do, from there, we're doing a fit call to make sure they're a right fit for us, we're a right fit for them, et cetera. That's a 20-minute consultation. And then, at that point, they come in and go through the 4-step process. But the bucket plan book is great for a lead magnet, but also what we found is people don't throw away books, right? Books have legs, right? They hang around. And even though the time might not be right for them to read it right now, at some point they will, and they'll call in. I mean, we literally get a couple calls every single month where we mailed out a book years ago. Wow. And they finally read it, and then they call in. Because people don't throw away books. They throw away your brochures and proposals and all this other stuff, but they're not throwing away books.
Yeah, that's so good. So I'm curious, right? Just you can't name your own book, right? But as you think, you guys are obviously very successful in business, have built a really awesome practice in business that you have going on. What is your most impactful book on your life and your journey, or what's a book you would recommend?
I can go first just because I wouldn't say this is the most impactful in my life, but it's one that I'm really kind of hot on right now. I actually have it sitting right in front of me. It's called Die with Zero. I've been sending this out to most of my clients. I feel like it's one of the best books I've ever read. I didn't write it. One of the best books I wish I wrote it. It's one of the best books I've ever read on kind of the intersection of fulfillment in life with money. It's by a guy named Bill Perkins, who made a fortune, I think as an energy trader. But it's just a fantastic book to kind of get you thinking of what you want to make out of your life and how to maximize it and how to think about money. And I don't know, I've given it out to probably 25 clients in the last 3 months. Wow. And every one of my clients has been like, thank you so much for sending me that. It's made an impact. So that's kind of one top of mind for me right now.
Yeah. Mine would definitely be Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Yes.
And so it made such an impact on my life at an early age. I read it in my early 20s, and I probably read it about 5 to 7 times, more than any other book that I've ever read. And it really led us to starting our national organization that's an RIA and has a training company and supports financial advisors, because it was really around the Mastermind Alliance philosophy, right? The idea of bringing together like-minded people that are all like rowing the boat in the same direction, but the collective wisdom of a mastermind. And that always resonated with me, and it's what I look to build. And even piggybacking off Strategic Coach, they teach a concept called unique ability, and creating a unique ability team, right? Where different people are going to be experts or passionate and really good at certain things. And I think that's a lot of resonates with the whole Mastermind Alliance philosophy that Napoleon Hill teaches, is bringing together the best minds to accomplish so much more. And so that was mine.
Awesome. So good. Yeah. So good.
Dave, thank you. Thank you both for coming on the episode. Jason, before we close out, let people know how they can connect with you guys and where they can get the book.
Yeah, the book's on Amazon, and we just had a new version come out. U.S. News and World Report just ranked it one of the top 10 books on retirement planning for 2022.
That deserves a round of applause. That's amazing, man.
Oh, thanks, man. It was so unexpected and yeah, so exciting. So you can get it on Amazon. It is a true story about an actual couple that I took through the bucket plan process and had an untimely death of the husband. But it was what inspired me to write it was when the husband died and the wife came in. And I showed her the bucket plan up on the board and put all her accounts in to remind her, because he primarily drove the bus. She was in the meetings. And she just looked down for like what felt like an eternity. And she looked up and tears were streaming down her eyes. And she got up and walked around the table and gave me this bear hug like I never felt before. And was like, I'm going to be okay, aren't I?
Wow.
And it was like at that moment, I'm like, I have to write this story exactly the way it happened when I met him a year and a half ago and built their bucket plan. And so, yeah, it's a great true story. And a lot of advisors use it. It had nothing to do with us. But this book is sold a crazy amount because I think a lot of advisors are using it to give it to prospective clients because they do bucketing too.
That's
a lot of advisors do bucketing. So if you do bucketing, feel free to use this as a resource to engage prospects and turn them into clients.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Thanks again for coming on the episode. And thank you all so much for listening. You can dive deeper to this episode, get the show notes along with the video over at staypaidpodcast.com. And if you enjoyed this episode and want to show your support, head on over to Apple Podcasts, drop us a 5-star review. And the best way to show your support is to simply share the podcast with someone that you know. If you want to get a hold of me or Luke, you can email us at podcast@remindermedia.com. And of course, you can follow us on social. We are at Stay Paid Podcast. For this episode of Stay Paid, I'm Joshua Stike.
Guys, I'm Luke Acree. That was awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. Definitely did not disappoint. I would challenge the audience, right? We always want to give action items for people to actually execute on, because you can hear things all day, but if you never execute, then you'll never change your life. And I would tell you, man, there's such a powerful tactic and principle that they shared, which is the power of visualization and showcasing to your clients what you do for them, the complex things you're handling for them in simple visual formats. And I would encourage you, man, especially if you're in financial services, go get the bucket plan. It's a no-brainer. But I think if you're in real estate, mortgage, doesn't matter your industry, think about how you could apply these 4 phases where you have this discover, this design, this deliver, and this dedicate, where you can walk people through visually. I'm just thinking like my brother, a real estate agent, I want to call him and say, hey, dude, in your listing presentation, how are you sitting down with that prospect and showing them and mapping them out exactly what you're doing and have them listen to this interview. But remember, guys, the difference between top producers and mediocre producers in every business is top producers take action. Take action on that today.